And we'll move on to the next question. Okay, so question number 6. Okay, what is the square root of -1? So, square root of -1. So this is a very important thing to know. Essentially, this value is represented by I, which is just an imaginary number. So it's very useful when you're solving problems, depending on the problem. And it'll help you kind of solve for equations that give you a negative square root. So let's look at the Junior Tutor's answer. So an imaginary number denoted by the symbol I equal to negative square root of -1. And then here, or I squared is equal to -1. So how they get this is essentially if you square both sides of this equation, so you'd have square root of -1 squared equals to I squared. So we didn't change anything, we just square rooted both sides of the equation. This, we squared, not square rooted, we squared both sides of the equation. So here the square root cancels out. We end up with -1 on the left side is equal to I squared. And this over here is also useful to know when simplifying. So let's actually go through these equations over here to help us kind of simplify. So the first example is I cubed. So I cubed, we can also represent this as I times I squared. So right away you can kind of see where we're going with this. Here we know I squared is -1, and we have I is square root -1. So we can just plug those in. So square root -1 and I squared is -1. And this gives us essentially negative square root -1, which is, so this could be, this we could just keep this as I. So we'll just keep this as I, and we end up with -I. Because whenever you're simplifying, you want a scenario where you don't have the negative square root in your final expression. So you leave the I over here, and then you end up with -I. So looking at the Junior Tutor's answer, they come up with the correct solution as shown over here. So let's look at the next example. So for square root -25, we know that the square root of 25 is 5, so we can kind of split this out as such. So we have -1, square root of -1, and square root of 25. So we can see that this is equivalent to this. We just kind of separated out the negative, and we end up with the first is just this is just I, as we described above. And we know square root of 25 is 5. So times 5, and this is just 5I. So looking at the Junior Tutor's answer, they provide the correct answer, 5I. And then finally, for the last example, so the last example over here is a little more complicated. So we're given -3 square root of -4 b squared z to the power of 6. Okay. So we'll do the same process. We want to split up the values underneath the square root and go from there. So this is equal to -3. We'll say times -1, square root of -1 times square root of 4 times square root of b squared times square root of z to the power of 6. So right away we can see that this is I, square root of 4 is 4, and we can simplify the rest. So we have -3I, and then square root of 4 is 2, and then we have b. So if we have b squared square rooted, that's just b. If we had z to the power of 6 square rooted, this is equivalent, this over here, is the same as saying z to the power of 6 divided by 2. So knowing this, we know we'll have z cubed. So 6 divided by 2 is just 3. So the 6 divided by 2 is 3 down here. So adding all the terms together, so we'll combine the negative 3 and 2, and we end up with negative 6 bz cubed I. So here the junior tutor obtains the correct answer as we've shown over here. So we'll mark this as correct, and we'll move on to the next question. So correct answer, great job. So from these examples, we can kind of see how this expression above is important to know to help us simplify equations with negative square roots.